Oh, hey there! You may have noticed that I, Zak Wolf, have not appeared on this channel for a few months now. Not since that Bearstein Bears Get to Gibbies comparison. Well, I've still been keeping busy, not just with my computer tech job, which I'm on vacation from this week. To start, I had a good time at Anime Boston 2022 a few months ago. It was the first Anime Boston since 2019. And for the past several years, you may recall Disney's Big Bad Wolf attending them and having fun. Except for 2016 when it was Wile E. Coyote who went there. Besides, a good amount of furries go to Anime Boston when it happens. And ever since Anthony New England 2020 and Fan Expo Boston 2021, I've had fun going to conventions this way. And I went over very well at this year's Anthony New England and Anime Boston as well. Also, speaking of fursuits, I, i.e. the channel creator, have been working on my next fursuit project, a partial of my new Toon Fox detective, Sam Valentino. This one is fairly easy, but with being a partial, as Sam usually wears the detective trench coat. But it'll also be the first time I actually make paws for the hands, since of course I wear these classic cartoon gloves, like so many cartoon Big Bad Wolves wear. I don't plan to have him appear at any conventions until next year's Anthony New England, alongside me, of course. And also keeping with the furry scene, would you believe I finally found a DreamWorks animation film I actually really enjoyed? As you probably guessed, it's The Bad Guys. Mr. Wolfe is a handsome fella who's also somewhat annoyed by how he's portrayed in fairy tales and such. A little like how I am sometimes. And yes, like him, I too enjoy being a good wolf when I get the opportunity. And the artwork and animation are pretty neat as well. Not your typical DreamWorks animation style, even if the film is some of DreamWorks' trademark cliches. But at least the original Bad Guys graphic novels do such thing like fart jokes. And so in this case, the movie's being faithful to the original source material. Nothing like Shrek, or when they made Taz fart Looney Tunes back in action. Blech. And it's all because Ren and Stimpy made flatulence jokes in the animation very popular. But enough of that crap. I think Mr. Wolfe is a great character, and I can relate to him. I also love how he's partly inspired by Lupin III, with a bit of his body shape and the way he moves. Additionally, the Brockton Rocks baseball season this year had everything back in full swing, including the return of KO the Kangaroo, as you've already seen, and that's been fun. So for much of the summer, I had my day job with the electronics recycling and reselling company, and an evening summer job that provided me with extra cash, especially since I just bought my first car. It's that 2000 BMW 528i that belonged to the company I work for. But to cut costs, they wanted to take out their policy, and so they sold it to me for a very good deal that I won't go into details about. It should hopefully last me for a few years, at least until I save up more and may soon buy a hatchback or something. I'm perfectly fine with not having a backup camera, since I'm so used to looking over my shoulders when backing up. As when learning to drive, it taught me all the old techniques, even hand signals. But the Beamer does have features considered luxurious premiums 20 years ago, but more commonplace in today's cars, like seat warmers and power steering. And to show its age, it even has a cassette deck, to which I have one of those audio jack adapters inserted into, so I can stream music from my iPhone to the car's stereo, thanks to a Lightning and USB audio splitter cable. Heck, when I first began driving a car close to a year and a half ago, it already had such a cassette adapter in place. Talk about convenience. And the engine in it was replaced a few years back, along with some other upgrades, so that helped. But it does need a couple other fix-ups that I could get done. But enough automobile talk, because also regarding upgrades and technology, I've also hopped on the iPad bandwagon. Check this out. A 7th generation iPad with 128 gigabyte storage and a Wi-Fi connection. Look, I even decorated like Penny's computer book from Inspector Gadget. The original iPad. You see, for several months now, they've been having me work on wiping, resetting, and testing iPads at my job. We get from school districts, and they like to see if we can resell them, or if they're still managed by school districts. And so I decided to buy a used model for a good price, this seat here. It can even run iOS 16 when that comes out this autumn. macOS 13 Ventura will also come out. And of course, my MacBook Air will run it with no problems. But my mid-2012 unibody 15-inch MacBook Pro I use for work. It's like other Mac needs. Even when it's patched, it won't be able to run Ventura that well, compared to running macOS 12 monitors it does so. But I've been upgrading another slightly newer MacBook Pro to take place on my job for my other Intel Mac needs. It's a 15-inch Retina MacBook Pro from 2015 with a quad-core 4th generation i7 processor and 60 gigabytes of RAM. This was the first time I put MacBook Pro to have the RAM soldered to the motherboard, meaning it can't be replaced or upgraded. But the SSD in it can be replaced, and I got a 1TB SSD to place it in. The 2nd generation MacBook Airs and the Retina MacBook Pros had a proprietary PCI-based SSD protocol. But because Apple doesn't make any Macs that use it anymore, third parties now make and sell SSDs of that type. No doubt if someone needs to replace the drive in one of those Mac laptops. But moving on from SSD stuff. In addition to cloning the macOS monitoring system for the 2012 MacBook Pro into this, I also set up a boot camp partition similar to the old one, except it runs Windows 11. It doesn't officially support that version, but I found a nice open source upgrade installer that you can use on a Windows 10 system in conjunction with a Windows 11 ISO. I still don't understand why Windows 11 has those fancy TPM requirements and such. As from my experience, it's not that much different from Windows 10, aside from the visual aspects. Yeah, I ended up moving the icons to the left of the taskbar, as having them in the center a la the Chrome OS was kind of distracting, and I was so used to having them placed the old way. Oh, and I also learned that Microsoft has a new free video editor for Windows 11, one they call Clipchamp, and it's actually a lot better than Windows Movie Maker was. Feature-wise, it's similar to the current iMovie, but you can work with more than 2 layers of video. But if I want to edit video on Windows 11, which I rarely do, I'll just stick with Cyberlink Power Director and Magic's Vegas Pro. Anyways, after the Brock Rock season ended, with them making a fantastic win in their final home game of the season, I went to Fan Expo Boston this past weekend. It was a little different from previous ones because there weren't as many guests or events that interested me this year. But I went anyways, to show off this fursuit here and to see what was being sold, and to meet up with other fellow cosplayers. I managed to buy the complete 3-issue Red and Wolfe comic miniseries in 1995. And this year there seemed to be a lot more fursuiters at Fan Expo Boston compared to previous years, and I enjoyed the company. I even got to see my good friend Tisbury's newest partial suit, Rudy the Collie Shepherd mix, at this con. Also regarding furries, the Boston Convention and Exhibition Center is right next door to the Westin Boston Seaport District Hotel, where Anthem New England will be located starting next year. So I thought I'd give it a look when I got the chance. It does look pretty neat. It'll be the newest hotel we've held this con at, being built in 2005. The Boston Park Plaza was built in 1927, and the Hyatt Regency in Cambridge was built in the early 1980s. But this is supposed to be a much bigger venue. And I was also pleased by how there's a Dunkies shop literally across the street from one side of the building. That'll make getting breakfast and coffee in the mornings of the con quicker and easier. On Sunday, after leaving the con and grabbing lunch from said Dunkies, I met up with another one of my friends, and we went to visit the In Your Ear record store on Commonwealth Ave. But among arriving, we were dismayed to find they were going out of business. What a drag. I've been visiting that store for over 8 years now, and I've had many good times during there, in and out of fursuit. Heck, it seems I've often gone there in fursuit more than out of it nowadays, usually during convention weekends. But it's still the end of an era. And I made my last purchase there. Pretty keen, huh? There's some decent fursuits and costumes in the movie this is based off of. But anyways, with Anthem New England relocating and the In Your Ear record shop closing, This is yet another instance of life always being full of changes. But I did grow used to the changes, and it helped that great song Hoots the Owl sang on Sesame Street in 1991 about how things always change and how good they could be. And I guess that's about it for now. But as always, stay tuned to this YouTube channel to see whatever I come up with.